What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video we're gonna be setting up our MetalView. Now for those who don't know what a MetalView is, if you're coming from OpenGL or Vulkan, when you're setting up your renderer, at some point you have to pass in a surface to render to. Now you can think of a MetalView as the same thing. It's just that it makes use of something called MTKView, which is a view that provides a default implementation of a metal aware view that you can use to render graphics using metal and display them on the screen. Now we're gonna implement that, and yeah, so let's get started. All right, now do keep in mind that certain things I won't go or explain in depth, mainly because I do know that this will be Swift specific, and I do know that certain people are not really coding in Swift. So, and the majority of my viewers also will be people who are essentially just interested in the shader related parts of the series along with the renderer related part of the series. So it doesn't really make sense for me to be too in-depth on Swift UI specific stuff. However, I will go into brief and explain what I'm doing for those who are actually following along using Swift UI. All right, so let's get started. And the first thing that we need to do is create a new file called a MetalView. So it's gonna be MetalView, so just call it MetalView. However, do keep in mind you can call this anything you want to use, anything you want to call it. I'm just gonna call it MetalView for simplicity. And then we're gonna say struct MetalView, and you saw I got that beautiful auto completion for the name right there. That's because I'm using Xcode 15 beta. All right, so yeah, and then what we're gonna need now is gonna say UI view representable, and then we're gonna need two functions basically that actually implement this. But before that, we forgot to import MetalKit. Actually, no, Swift UI. All right, Swift UI. So then I'm gonna say function, and then make coordinator, and then the other one will be make UI, and then the other one will be function.update UI, and then that will be it for our MetalView. So if you click save here, you'll see that I'm getting an error somewhere. So oh yeah, so we have to basically implement this. So you see that it says context, but we actually implementing a UI view representable. So it kind of makes sense to change this to kind of match the context that we actually gonna be using here. So it's gonna be UI view dot representable context, and then we're gonna pass in our MetalView, which is the file that we're currently working on, which will be our view. And then we're just gonna copy this, and then we're gonna also replace the context for the update UI view like so. And then since we're gonna be making use of MTKView, like I said, we're gonna return MTKView, but we're gonna need to import something here, which I believe is called MetalKit, just so that we can find the definitions for MTKView, if I'm not mistaken. And then yeah, so that's essentially it. Let me see. Okay, yeah, so then what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna say let MTKView, which is what we're going to be returning. So we're basically just defining the variable, and then we're gonna assign it to MTKView, initialize it like that, and then we're gonna basically just I guess start defining our properties. So the first one that I'm going to do is going to be called the delegate, which will be our coordinator right here. Okay, so I'm just gonna say equals to context, which is what we're passing in right here, dot coordinator like that. Okay, and then down below here I'm just going to return the MTKView like so. And then what you're seeing here is that we have something called a make coordinator view, a make coordinator I mean. So we need to basically define this because it's not defined. All right, now I went searching on the internet for solutions and to basically understand what this is. So when you go down to the Apple documentation and search make coordinator, you will realize that we have this definition right here, right? It basically says a make coordinator function creates the custom instance that you use to communicate changes from your view controller to other parts of your Swift UI interface. So therefore, our coordinator is just something that communicates changes from our view controller. And our view controller can be thought of as a renderer, essentially, and basically communicate those changes to our Swift UI interface. All right. And speaking about our renderer, we're going to rename this coordinator to renderer. Now we don't have our renderer implemented, so what we're going to need to do here is come down to the project structure and click on renderer, and then just click a new file, and then we're going to say Swift file, and then we're going to call it a renderer. All right, and then just click OK, and then our renderer here essentially is our coordinator. All right, which we basically just replaced with the name renderer. All right, so in order for this to really work, I did some research online to figure out how to set up our coordinator, and I found this solution by the Apple's graphics and games engineer. So it is an official code from one of the Apple's engineers, and this was like 2 years ago, so this shows how old these documentations are. However, I do believe that this was meant for a Mac OS, since it's using NS view representable. However, if you look at ours, we use a UI view representable, so it's specifically for iOS, I believe. I could be mistaken, so don't take my word for it. So far what we've implemented is a make coordinator, and then we're gonna need to call it. So for us, it's just gonna be renderer self. Now I will link a link to this feed thread in the video description if you guys want to take a look at it. It's actually quite descriptive, I believe, and hopefully it will help most of you guys. But yeah, so that is that, and then we have to essentially come back to our render since we haven't implemented it. And if you scroll down, you'll see that it says coordinator, and it basically inherits from and its object and MTKView delegate. So we're gonna do the same, and we're gonna say class instead of coordinator, we're gonna call it renderer, and then we're gonna basically implement and its object along with I believe it was MTKView delegate. Okay, MTKView delegate like this, and then essentially all we need to do here define two functions. One is basically going to be MTKView, MTKView. So MTKView, and I don't have IntelliSense, so obviously something is missing, and I believe it's MetalKit. Just click OK there, and then come back, and then boom, we have IntelliSense back. So and then the other one will be function.draw, and then that is essentially it. However, since this is a class, we're gonna need to define some global variables, I believe, and one of them is going to be the parent, and it's going to be of type MetalView. And since it is a global variable and this is a class, we need to sort of initialize it when we're calling our renderer. So to do that, we need a constructor, and then our constructor will take in a parameter here, a private parameter, hence the underscore there, and then we're going to call it parent like so, and then it's going to be of type MetalView so that it matches with our variable here that we want to populate. All right, so therefore to populate this variable, all we got to do is say self dot parent, which now we're referencing this parent, and then we're essentially making it equals to the parent that is being passed through the constructor. Simple, isn't it, right? So then we just click OK and just save our code, and that should get rid of the errors right there. And I believe that's the only thing we're going to be setting up in our renderer for this video. We don't need anything else since this video is specifically focused on the MetalView. So I'm just going to click save here. Just hopefully it will get rid of the render related errors, and yes, it does. And that is essentially it. Literally, this is our MTKView, MetalView, right? Which is obviously making use of our MTKView. So in order for us to actually see this in Swift UI, before I actually implement it, I just want you to see that hello shaders is in the center of our screen, right? And then when we actually call our MetalView, which is the view that we've just implemented or created, you'll see that hello shaders moves all the way downstairs right here. It's just chilling, right? Meaning that this area here is essentially populated or occupied by our metal view, meaning that we are getting closer to being able to actually render some pretty cool graphics using shaders and our metal renderer. All right, so however, we're not done, and I'm not really gonna code or type in the remaining, because we're just populating our properties, or we're just setting our properties. So since the solution is already on the internet, and remember kids, you shouldn't work too hard, you gotta work smart. So I'm just gonna copy all those implementations, then I'm gonna Command A, then Control I to format my code properly, and then I'm just going to make everything look pretty, and then I'm gonna get rid of the clear colors since we don't really need that. Our renderer will be responsible for setting those properties. So yeah, and that is essentially it for setting our metal view. I will link this thread in the video description for those who are interested in dissecting it and understanding it a little bit better. But for those who are not working with SwiftUI, that doesn't really apply to you guys. However, our MetalView has been successfully set up and it is working, there's no errors. So in the next video, we'll be setting up our renderer, and then from there we'll be setting up our shaders and hooking it up to our renderer, and we'll start coding some beautiful graphics. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, do hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.